6 o'clock, let's start our meeting. Before we start the roll call, remember to speak loudly into your mic so everyone can hear you. Everyone in the public, if you can't start hearing us, raise your hand to remind us, please. It'll help. With that, Patty, can you take the roll call?
I sure can. Espino,
Here.
Lang,
Here.
Mencia,
Here.
Petrielli here, Reed,
Here.
Sager,
Here.
and Schumacher. Okay.
Can we please stand for Pledge of Allegiance? And we'll let our fifth graders from Salt Creek lead us off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first thing we have is we have a presentation from Salt Creek Elementary. Before we have you guys begin, I would like to say it's welcome back.
Thank you.
We have not had students in the board meeting since probably February of 2019 and 2020, yes. And it reminds us why we're here for you students. So with that, I will turn it over to you. Have a great presentation and good luck.
Thank you.
And also be sure to speak loudly into the mic so people can hear you too.
I'll start you off, yes. We could go to the next slide. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for having Salt Creek students present at the board meeting tonight. We have been very fortunate to work with the students the past week on different things that they want to present and share with you.
I got it. Okay, so thank you again for having us. We have been working together this past week and talking about our new math curricular resource, Illustrative Math. Walking into the classrooms at Salt Creek, you can see and hear the energy around the math lessons and the math structure. Students are using manipulatives, they're exploring, and they're engaged in conversations. So tonight, they have prepared a presentation that allows you to see a glimpse into a small portion of their math. So we just want to start off with introductions. My name's Sarah Humboldt, and I am the principal at Salt Creek. Griselda Tapia, our assistant principal, and we'll turn it over to our students to introduce themselves. Melanie, you start.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I'm Mark. I am Sean Stapleton. I'm Lauren. I'm Emily. I'm Hannah.
Okay, so if we take a look at our next slide, we just want to share with you what we do in a normal lesson for math. We start off our math lesson with the warm-up. This is an opportunity for students to engage in the topic for the day. We then move into some activities and synthesis. We have an opportunity to engage in conversation about what we learned, and it's an opportunity to hear about the vocabulary and use words that allow us to consolidate our thinking. And then we end our day with a cool down. So this is kind of the structure of our math block for the hour. And now our students are going to walk you through what this looks like and what it means to them as mathematicians in the classroom.
Here's an example of a math warm-up. The warm-up helps us get our brains thinking. After the warm-up, we have a summary that takes us into the lesson. From this warm-up, we had a chance to talk about prisms. The synthesis gave us vocabulary to talk about how to measure volume.
This is an example of an activity we do in class. We use unit cubes to build different shaped rectangular prisms. We practice length, height, width, depth, and volume. Then sometimes we play a game called Guess My Prism, which we will play with you in a few minutes. After the activity and lesson, we do cool downs using our computers or worksheets. The cool down is a review on what we practiced. This helps us show the teacher what we know and learned.
When. When lasts 30 minutes. For when you go, most students go to different classes, which means different teachers and students. When is on your level. An example, some children might be good at one thing, but another child might not be good at it and needs more work on it. Right now, during when, we are doing multiplication and division strategies. We also do iReady, which is a website where there are lessons that are just for you. We also do math games, which is a fun way to do math learning. And doing when helps us get ready for 6th grade and middle school when we're going to be switching classes and not sitting in the same class.
Math is very different this year than other years. Here are some things we like about math this year. The first thing is that we only work with a partner or independently, which most students enjoy. Next, we have more math time, and we like that because 1, it gives us more time to finish our assignments. Also, we get to work on what is at our level on iReady. One more thing is we get more time to stretch our brains and we can learn more math when we have more time. Also, for some classes, math is in English this year, which is a huge change because math used to be in Spanish. Another thing is math warm-up. This is not new, but we like it. It helps because it helps get our brains thinking and turned on. We also get our brains warmed up because we have win time before our math block. The last thing is that we get to use unit cubes. These are really fun for most of the students, and we are still learning.
In-person learning makes it easier to learn because we don't have to do it on Zoom and write on whiteboards. We get answers in person faster, and you don't have to wait until the teacher comes back into your breakout room to help you with your problem. Math is easier in English because we are able to understand more of the word problems and the vocabulary. Vocabulary this year is now less of the old words we were using for math and are now being replaced with the new vocabulary words. The WIN teachers help us with understanding math and give us the right tools we need to progress and that the other students need so that our learning is fair and not just equal, because not everybody needs the same kind of help, and this helps to break down the levels so that everyone is the right level that is right for them.
Math bags with the tools help us do hands-on activities. The teacher tells us what we are doing and shows a presentation that describes the lessons slide by slide. This makes it easy to follow. This year we have student workbooks. It is easy because it is on paper. The student workbooks also has extra practice problems. The warm-up turns on my brain and helps me wake up. The cool-down helps me show the teacher what I learned and if I need additional help.
Okay, so now I think they would like to play an activity with you. This was one of their favorite activities. So, guys, you want to get started? Okay, you want to pair up? Okay, so out of your seats. Okay, you have this one. You could use their computer as a block, right? Okay. Okay, so Melanie, you want to come up here? You want to pair up this way?
Yeah.
You want to pair? Okay. You have to use your computer so you can't see.
Oh, you want to pair with somebody else? Hannah, you want to go on over there? Hannah, you want to pair up with somebody, with one of the adults? Yep. Go and pair. Do you have kids or have? You don't? If not, just join another ortho group.
I forgot to practice.
Just go and join Hannah with that group.
Come on
Need
in.
the computer or no?
What are we doing?
Okay, we'll work together. Do you have? If not, just join another group. Go with this Charlie. Here, Tiger.
Principal Humboldt.
The width is 4.
First one to finish.
For. I'll get it next time.
Height is 2. Height is 2. Got it.
Sure.
Guess my
Okay, did anyone get it? Not get it? Yeah. We got it? Well, thank you so much for participating and letting us be.
Here you go. Yeah.
Can we ask who the teachers are of these students?
My teacher is Miss Marzan.
Anyone have a different teacher? Or are you all Miss Marzans?
My teacher is Mrs. Brands.
Just those two?
Yeah.
Awesome. Can we give a huge shout out for our teachers because they must be doing an awesome job. And a big shout out to all your parents and family members who are sitting behind you. Thank you for letting them be here tonight. And a huge round of applause for our students. What amazing learners you are.
All right, before I let you go, I'm assuming there's some board members that may have some questions or comments.
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment. One, Lauren, you did a great job. I did not get the answer right because I didn't have a math warm up. That's the reason. But all of you guys did great. If you guys were nervous before you came up here, now you realize how easy it was to speak in front of everybody, right? It's nothing to be scared about. You guys can keep doing this and keep doing a great job. Thank you all so much.
You guys, I wanted to thank you so much for doing a little activity with us and teaching us a little bit more about your math. I actually have a 5th grader myself, so I've enjoyed looking through your workbook and seeing some of the manipulatives you use. So the question I have for you guys, and anyone can answer if you have a response, is how do you guys feel about having extra time this year for math?
We really like it.
Something I like about that is we have more time and we can learn more about math.
And we also have more time to have more things done in the year instead of missing out on some things.
I think it's a lot better because I'm really slow and I always have something to do.
And you know what? Everyone goes at their own pace, so I'm glad you feel like you can take your time and do your best.
I feel good about this because WIN hasn't happened since 3rd grade, and I feel WIN is better for me because stuff in lessons in the classroom a lot of the times are too easy for me, and then WIN is great for me because it's much like more challenging.
I like WIN because it gives a challenge for this at your level, and it makes you work and think.
You guys, those are great. Oh, I don't want to cut you off.
I like doing WIN because you get to go to different classrooms and see different friends and like talk to them and solve math problems with them.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for the responses. I am really excited about math at Salt Creek. Nice work.
I want to just say, I think you guys are awesome. I'm thrilled that we got to see you, and I'm happy you like the new math program because it took us a while to find something that would really make you guys energized about it, and I'm glad you see it that way. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing with us.
I add to that. I'm just very happy to see children in school this year. That's wonderful. And so happy to see all the parents who have come along to support your children, and obviously you're supporting them at home, and that's wonderful. So thank you all. Good parents, good students.
Okay, with that, I would like to say thank you for coming. I hope your parents you got all the pictures you needed.
I think we'll do
Hey,
some
yeah,
outside as
and-
well.
Can we have them come up here? So can we have them come
Yes,
in front of us
please.
for one kind of big group picture? We can stand up back here.
Okay.
Come on up. You guys stand up front here.
Typically one of our prisons.
Hang on one second. We want to get our
Oh, the official guy.
Get a quick.
He's the official guy. Look at the big camera. Great.
Great job, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
We'll give them a few minutes to kind of get their stuff and go on outside for their pictures. While they're moving out, we're going to start our comments and suggestions from the public. This is the point of the meeting where we welcome public comments. If you wish to address the board, please sign in. There's a sign-in board on the table in the back there. Although comments may be made on almost any matter related to operation of schools, comments will not be allowed concerning individual students or staff members. Any comments related to individual students or staff should be addressed in private with the superintendent. As a reminder, this meeting is being video live streamed on YouTube. The video of the meeting will also be archived and available for viewing after the meeting has adjourned. For those sharing a public comment, please be mindful that you are being broadcast live and your comment will also be included in the video archive. Please limit your individual comment to 3 minutes. A board member will serve as timekeeper and give the speaker notice when there are 30 seconds remaining to allow the speaker time to complete or summarize their thoughts. The board's attorney has advised the board to maintain a consistent rule regarding the length of time an individual may take to address the Board of Education. Doing so safeguards the freedom of speech rights of each speaker to be treated equally. If one person is granted additional time, then all speakers henceforth will need to be treated similarly. This is the business meeting of the Board of Education, and the board must conduct its business in public and must complete that business in a timely manner. If you wish to provide written comments to the board, they will be included in the meeting minutes. Such meetings are not held for public discussions of the public. While it is the practice of the board not to respond to public questions or comments during the meeting, the board members do listen attentively and carefully and consider your thoughts and topics you present. With that, has there been anybody come to speak to in front of the board? That whole speech. Hey, that's my 3 minutes of fame. Okay, so since there are no comments or suggestions from the public, we're going to move on to suggestion items. In the agenda, we have 2 items listed under superintendent report. Item 12.01, curriculum review, process and math implementation plan, and 12.02, 10-year facilities plan. We are in the process of looking at our agenda and trying to make some minor changes and adjustments to the agenda, and we feel it's important to bring all important stuff for transparency purposes to the beginning of the board meeting so family members can see what's important to them instead of trying to turn in later or staying around for the whole meeting. So those last 2 agenda items, 12.01 and 12.02, are actually going to be moved up and included as under discussion items. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about prepare the tax levy, then the budget, the security upgrades, and we'll move on to the curriculum and then the 10-year plan. That way, the community members and those that want to hear those topics can hear the topics and then leave if they need to. With that, prepare 2021 tax levy and set date. I'm assuming that's you, Ron?
That is correct.
I have a big table here for you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bresnahan and Board of Education. So the tax levy hearing for 2021, this is just a yearly practice for transparency. So if the district asks for a levy above 5% of the prior year, there must be a truth in taxation hearing. However, in the spirit of transparency, as we've always done, we do it every year. The public hearing date would be November 8th.
What did we ask for last year? We didn't ask for the 5%. We asked for what percentage last year?
It was over 4. I can't recall, but
And what were
it was under 5.
And what did we receive? CPI was what, 1.9?
It was a little bit more than that, but I don't have the exact number.
Just for my own understanding and for the understanding of the parents at home or that are listening, the tax levy process is basically, we receive funding from state, local, and federal sources, and we have our budget, but we need to anticipate how much funding we will need from these state, federal, and local sources, but we don't know because the property taxes haven't been assessed, so we kind of, is it like a buffer? Is that basically what we're doing?
That is correct.
Okay.
So the levy is more of an ask, and then the extension is what we receive. We have the ability to ask, meaning to levy as much as what we think would cover for us. Otherwise, you lose the dollars you haven't asked for. Forever.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? All right, then we'll move on to 6.02, prepare the 22-23 budget. I'm assuming that's you as well, Ron?
Yeah, that is correct. This is also another example of it being a school code mandate. So we are looking to prepare the budget as early as possible. It's just common practice. And there are examples in the background of items that we do look at specifically to support district initiatives.
Can you tell us a little bit about the budget process and the length and what goes into it?
Absolutely. It's definitely a multi-year program. It's a lot of monitoring of the finances around the district, not only here, but you look at the state, the federal level. It's a lot of networking and listening. It's also at the same time gauging the information from SLT, Dr. Bresnahan, and making sure that the dollars do go to programs that we are going to go forward with, as well as with the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. We do have those discussions as well. It essentially is just, it's a year-round watching the levy, watching your funding, making sure that everything is funded that you're asking for without doing anything that's going to disrupt the district.
Ron, could you tell us a little bit just generally about what the ESSER funds are and what they're individually, specifically supposed to be for?
Absolutely. So there we have 3 ESSER levels. So the first one was ESSER 1 that occurred in I think it was March of last year. ESSER 2, and right now we are currently ARP ESSER 3. So the 3 of those, essentially, the first one was kind of just to get by. It was a matter of the district receiving almost $1 million just to ensure that we used it for, like, for example, for meals. ESSER 2 has been more of, it was PPE, so like masks, trying to get kids into the buildings. That was some of our little bit of HVAC stuff, but it was more or less curricular as well for learning loss. And so ESSER 3 is essentially, now that we have people who are in the buildings with the children, how can we make sure that learning loss is constantly addressed? So right now, you have to put a certain percentage of your dollars from ESSER 3 and apply it for curricular pieces. Now, I can tell you based on dialogue, I know that with Susan, for example, with Ms. Savage, yeah, there's a lot that we can utilize for with education, and that's kind of what we're looking for. It's just, it hasn't been properly applied just yet. And once we get that information together for ESSER 3 as to what we really truly need, that's when we'll have to submit something with the state. So you have to make sure that once you write down what you want in those ESSER funds, you submit it to the state, and they actually have to approve of it. So ESSER 3 right now, that's an $8.6 million grant, and that's something that I alone cannot make the decision on. So we're currently making lists with SLT members, and from those lists, we can create a final product that then I'd go off with Dr. Bresnahan and see what we're going to put on there, and then see what the state says and write the grant. That in itself has been, it's been quite interesting to see what our students' needs are and how they have been addressed. But it, again, you saw what we saw today with IM. The dollars they're for a great cause.
Did we use all of the ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds up? Everything that was available to us? Did we use them all?
ESSER 1, yes, and we did receive the reimbursement. ESSER 2, there still has to be an expense report that we have to submit, and then that'll be done. ESSER 3, there has been nothing just yet.
So, but we're also, aren't we considering doing some other stuff to our facilities related to the ESSER 3 funds to basically make the school environment a safer environment for students to come in, right?
Yes, absolutely. For example, on the agenda today, we're talking about the water fountains that we were trying to replace all of them. That's an example. The security cameras, 200 replacements there. That goes towards ESSER funds. There are a lot of items with, like what you mentioned, Mr. Reed, that you can actually use ESSER funds for with facilities. We're fortunately in a good spot because of phase 1 and phase 2 being finished. Now, not to say there's not more to improve. We can always improve. But with that money happening and us making sure that our facilities, our MERV 13, we're up to date, we're in a good spot.
The ESSER funds have been a big help to us this year. A big help.
This year, I was joking with Janet Russo that this has got to be the hardest year in terms of the financials with the budgeting that I've ever dealt with, in addition, because everyone thought we were going back. Things were going to be what you want to call normal. It's not. And nothing's going away, it seems like, anytime soon. So when it comes to those additional expenses, yes, absolutely. It's been, hey, can we use this for ESSER 3? Can we use that for ESSER 3? Because we need to make sure, It has been quite the challenge.
And so throughout the year, we have these adjustments to the budget because we have to be nimble, right? So this initial budget, we edit it later on, or we make adjustments?
That's more of a philosophical thought. That's something that I think would be more of a discussion for like the finance facilities initially. Not to say we're hiding anything. It's just you want to make sure that your budget does align with what you're doing, but at the same time, it's just like you're saying, Dr. Sager, The variables this year have been just incredibly challenging to figure out.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, is this year you may have a certain set budget and strange things will happen, and so we need to make corrections throughout the year.
Yeah, correct. For example, transportation. I mean, I think we've all seen the lack of drivers that we've had, which means they may have more people on a route, but now that's one less route that you have run. So you may be saving $1 or $2 here, but it's more packed. So now you're thinking, okay, we budgeted for those initial routes, but it didn't happen.
Thank you, Ron. I think we're ready to move on to, why am I scroll down? So I said earlier, we're gonna jump to the superintendent report, the curriculum. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, the most important part, the security upgrade.
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, I think you need Albert for this one, don't you?
Yeah, Albert will be great to discuss. Yeah, we can share.
Ross only needs his.
Or not. So I'll bring the quick introduction in, and then Albert can elaborate. One of the pieces that we continue looking at is making sure that our students have the safest facilities. So we looked at the security of the cameras at each of the 15 buildings. Out of the 200 cameras, it's approximately 130 that are going to be replaced, and then the 70 that we have additional, so that we make sure we have all eyes on the entire perimeter. The end of life for the software has been met. Our new cameras are necessary. For an example, if you have one in a corner, you can nowadays, they have like a 360-degree rotation where you can follow everything. We have cameras that don't have that capability. Another example would be higher pixelation. So if there was an accident or an issue, we have problems identifying people or the situation. The zoom in, the quality, the higher pixelation will help. It also improves our safety since they're installing intercoms at the entrances so that you can press the button and you'll make the noise, and it's one more layer of security before you get into our buildings. Data is going to be saved for longer periods, and our quality as well, and we're making sure that all necessary staff will be trained. Albert, what would you like to add?
You really did a good job. You did a great job. I mean, really what we did is we did a full study, an audit. Our current system is at least 15 years plus, in age, and so, just as Ron has mentioned, there's a lot of cameras that, are out of focus. It's hard to get good detail out of, and so what we did was we actually did a full audit. We walked each and every building to see what better coverage can we have, and let's get a better coverage around the perimeter of the building instead of just certain places. So we added several cameras to each building throughout this survey. So as an example, like Devonshire may only have had 5 cameras around the perimeter. Now we've increased that. So now there's like an extra 8, on top of the 5. And then we also we looked at the inside of our schools and say, hey, shouldn't we take advantage of our exit doors? Let's put a camera at each of our exits to make sure for extra security, if we know who's coming in and who's going out. If there's ever a time, hopefully never, a missing student or something like that, hopefully we'll be able to capture that. So, and I think, with cameras, it's a safety deterrent. We're hoping to deter, any kind of vandalism, and we know that cameras won't 100% do that, but at least we hope that we can capture that if something were to occur, so.
Sorry.
Can I ask, who maintains that data? Oh, I thought I had it on. Who maintains that data when you guys collect it? Is it per building, the principals? Who actually monitors all that?
So the principals do have access to the system. We maintain it at servers located here at this facility. That's where it gets recorded. So we're actually adding a server to increase that capacity, to make it more balanced.
Awesome. So Albert, if you could clarify, so the purpose of upgrading the cameras and then the additional cameras is so that we have full perimeter visibility on all of our buildings? And then is it true across all, 15, 16 locations that we also have the exit cameras?
So that's one of the things that we discussed at our last meeting is we said, hey, why don't we should focus in at our other schools and do what we did at our 3 secured vestibule schools, where we created the system where we actually have a visitor door station on the outside, so that way we can keep the front doors locked. One of the things that I noticed when I first started in the district was that we always tend to keep a door at the main entrance unlocked. So we're allowing that first layer of security. We're kind of just letting that stay open. So what we just discussed recently, and that's what we added to this, was let's add those visitor door stations, they're called, to the outside. So that way we can then create a full, we'll have parity among all schools.
That's helpful. And so the perimeter's covered, the visitor door stations, and then I guess my question was, you had mentioned something about installing cameras at each exit.
Exit door, correct.
Exit door. So is that across all schools?
Exactly, it
Awesome.
is. Yeah.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is do a full blanket coverage to the best of our ability. There still may be a camera here or there that a dean might pick out or say, hey, we have a blind spot over here. But to the best of our ability, that's our approach, is to have coverage at each and every exit, a full coverage around the perimeter of the building, and then also as we walk in, at the main entrance, we can have coverage at that point as well.
Thank you. I think the one thing I didn't mention is that they kind of break down is that, people have access to the video feeds, but that is logged of who's accessing it. And the other thing is actually giving the police the access to view the video feed in case of something. They can get access to that video feed as well, too.
I'm really glad, having seen having worked with the old cameras and how pixely they were.
Right.
I'm really glad these are going to have more clarity, because I know principals having to try and navigate through identifications with those cameras. The old cameras was crazy. So I'm glad we're doing
There's
that.
going to be training. We're going to have blocks of hours of IT support from the contractor doing the work, so that way for the future, we'll have that. All principals will have access, and whoever else may need it, that's appropriate. We did discuss the fact of talking with PD, to be able to if they need to gain access, how do we approach that? How do we go about that? But that's all capable. The system's capable to where superintendent should be able to view cameras from her phone if she would so like to. So, there's a lot of good capabilities with the system. We're upgrading the software as well to a more flexible, newer software. Our cameras, they're all throughout Chicago Public Schools. They're access cameras, so they're good quality. They're going to be here for a long, long time. Yeah.
I'd like to add too, really quick, that the initial estimated cost was $625,000. So it's a testament to Albert and his team for going out there. Eleni might be here too. There she is.
She's wonderful.
They solicited bids and information, and it ended up becoming a $404,000 purchase for everything. So
That did slightly increase because we did add the extra visitor, the door stations for that.
That's
Some
what I was
extra
going to ask. Is the
cameras.
404 with the door stations that we had discussed at the
No,
facilities
so
meetings?
it did increase. That was the previous. It did increase by, I think now it's at 447. I just got the recent
Okay,
quotes that came
so,
back.
because we discussed this at the facilities meeting, that this was the initial amount without the standardized door system at all the
Correct.
locations. But
Yep.
since you came in so low under the initial, we thought that equalizing everything across schools made sense. Across
That was a great call.
facilities.
Yeah, and that's what we did right after that. We reached out, we said, okay, what's the add-on to add these, to get that
And it was
functionality.
something like, if we also found at some point there was a particularly troublesome blind spot, we could always add a camera to the
Correct.
system later on.
Yep. And that's our goal, is once the system's in place, then our maintenance department can take over. And if we needed to add a camera here or there, we can do that in-house. But right now, the initial brunt of the work is this here. How do we get this done and get it done in a timely fashion?
And this is installed by them.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that was my next
So
question.
yeah, we're gonna get a brand new system, and then there's less maintenance to do every year.
And it's going to be a wired system, not a wireless.
Yeah.
But can you give us, so we'll discuss this this month, next month we'll approve it. What's the plan for getting this done, and will it be done during school time, outside of school time?
So speaking with the contractor, they are willing to work after hours, so they could do like a 4 o'clock. And this is what they do. So this is their line of work. I mean, they work when it's cold out, and so they're more than willing to do that. And so if we're given the green light, we can start having those conversations.
Are the cameras connected to the power, for instance, with the recent storms that we had, the power outages and some of the schools, would the cameras go out when the power goes out?
They will have they'll be on a backup. So I mean, you'll have some power backup. I can't guarantee how many hours of backup, but yeah, you'll have some.
Is that included in this?
Yes.
The APCs, the backup systems?
General high-level question maybe for Ron here. Like, it'll say that the funding here is going to come out of our capital projects fund or the ESSER dollars. The ESSER dollars being the federal dollars that we get. How do we make that determination or as to where the money comes from?
Well, to be honest with you, the capital project was the initial piece because it did fall under that. But then with the amount of dollars that came in, I conferred with Dr. Bresnahan, and she was like, well, why don't we look at ESSER 3? This is a good opportunity for that. So it will come out of ESSER 3. Yeah. That I do know. But initially it was, a 60 fund discussion.
Hey, you had that detailed spreadsheet showing the cameras and the cost by school, by building. Can you share that in Friday's update for the board members to see the breakout of these dollar amounts?
Yes.
And can we also see what the licensing cost is for the software every year? You seem to, if I recall our discussion, it was anticipated to be less than sort of our maintenance overall, yearly expense. So, because it's a newer system, there's a little bit higher licensing fee, but less.
And that's what I thought too as well. So when I did reach back out, I think it was only a $20 per camera licensing fee.
Oh,
so I think
much less than we had guessed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I guessed I said $100. Yes. It's less than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can be proud of ourselves from what we've done with the 3 entrances of the schools that were not safe, because now all of our entrances are safe. And if we get all these new cameras and everything in for protection, obviously we need it because there's more and more things going wrong where people are doing things what they shouldn't be, and we have to have as much protection as we can get.
Exactly.
And if we can use the ESSER funds, wonderful. That's great to use them for that.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I appreciate everybody here being on board, with these type of upgrades because it's important. Sometimes these kind of get lost in transition over time. Yeah. It's just we just take it for granted. Cameras there, should work. But it costs money to do this. So by making these upgrades, I mean it really puts us at the top.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we talk about security entrances and security footage and security cameras, we're always thinking of that worst case scenario of what can go wrong inside of our buildings. And they're kind of hard discussions to have. But on the other side of the coin, there are benefits to the visibility. When we have the water leaks in the building, we can see what actually caused it, and helps with insurance claims and things like that. But no, okay, that's just wanted to make that comment.
Great point.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think you guys are excused. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next Yeah, that's right, you'll be back. But I think we get to bring up Susan now, who's going to share with us the curriculum review process and math implementation plan.
I'm good. I guess I'll stand here. Hello, good evening. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Our students got us off to a great start tonight. I was like, I should keep them here for my presentation tonight. So, curriculum instruction update. Tonight, we're going to talk about the work that we have begun, particularly in relation to an overarching plan that aligns with the strategic plan to have a broader, more comprehensive curriculum management plan, with the first step being a curriculum review process. The second thing we'll talk about tonight is our math implementation plan. Some board members have heard a little bit about this through other committees, but we're gonna kind of look through that piece, explain it so people can see the work that we're currently doing right now to monitor the implementation and our math goals in general. And that picture up there, by the way, that picture that was just there. So those students were little kindergarten students. Last week, I see this wonderful work. I was the opportunity to see some other math in action. That happened to be a kindergarten class, Mrs. Les at Robert Frost, working on their pattern blocks right there. So they are heavily involved in their manipulatives. So the curriculum review process, there's a document link that the board has access to. You can take a look at all the details there. I'll simply walk through the slides tonight because each of the slides kind of highlights different components of it. So really, we're going to talk about the fact that this process is aligned with board policy and what's expected from the board. It includes a curriculum council and the curriculum resource committee, which includes board members. And we are breaking it down into manageable phases of how we will manage our curriculum review process moving forward. So we'll kind of talk through each one, the first piece being the curriculum council. In the past, we've had various ways of involving staff in the curriculum process, but moving forward, as we begin realigning a little bit, we would like to start with a curriculum council process, which is an internal process that will include instruction department, administration, staff, that will meet and begin looking at whatever our needs might be to review curriculum. And it can be fluid based on the needs. For example, should all go well, we want to start looking at literacy, then this year we'll have a curriculum council with a focus on literacy. And we will work through that process in phases, which I will describe, that we can stretch out based on the needs, or we can move up based on the needs that we uncover. The other piece that is critical and aligns with the board policy of what we need to have in place for curriculum review is having that curriculum resources committee be part of that process when we're meeting and looking at how we're getting that two-way communication feedback between that group that can then come back and work with the curriculum council here in the district, instruction department, et cetera, to figure out the pacing, the needs, and work through that process as a cohesive team.
Susan, can you just mention real quick who's involved in the Curriculum Resources Committee?
Yes, so the Curriculum Resources Committee, right now, it is made up of 3 of our board members right here. So Dr. Seger and Ms. Schumacher, as well as Mrs. Petrielli, are our board members on that committee. We also have Nicole Robinson with me as facilitators of that committee. It includes any community members that would like to attend, parents as well. In fact, we had a conversation at a previous meeting earlier this year. We had a little preliminary meeting and talked about changing the time so that it'd be more feasible for people to come and attend that meeting. So it'll be at 5 p.m. so that it's more opportunity for people to come. So that committee can be anyone who has an interest in learning about our our work in curriculum, but also who is willing to really support and provide feedback and reimagining those meetings as really interactive and gathering information that we need so that we can then move forward with the parent and the community input and kind of work through our cycle.
I guess just a question on that. So I'm trying to understand like how the council and the resource committee like work together. So would the idea be that the council might come up with a recommendation and then
yes. Okay. So the council would be internal and it would be focused on probably the much more deeper work of working, let's say, for example, through an audit and all of those pieces that we go through. And then they would be recommending, it would go and be shared with the Curriculum Resources Committee. And even thinking, perhaps we have a meeting next week, I think the 23rd, I could be asking questions to the Curriculum Resource Committee as to, could you share questions that you think as parents we should be asking the parent community? So for example, they're representing the broader community and getting them involved in supporting us perhaps through investigation we might need to do through some of our audit work. So now looking at phases of what this could look like and what we are planning to work through, and it can be fluid in nature and it can be flexible as I stated before. So the first phase where we're looking at an area would be to do the evaluation, which would be, it could be an audit, or it could be another type of evaluation that we look at, which we are gathering data, gathering feedback, analyzing student outcome data, and we could be also looking at state standards, changes there would be things that we will be keeping in mind every year that could potentially prompt an evaluation. So those things I mentioned, such as student outcomes, maybe issues with implementation of another curriculum, state standard changes that we want to make sure that we're staying abreast of, and even best practices in assessment. So all of those and how those things are shifting could impact that phase 1 prompt to start an evaluation. Phase 2 would be, we have uncovered a lot of information, we have recommendations from the Curriculum Council, and from there, we're ready to move forward with perhaps look at some published curricular resources, assessment tools, for example, that we could then work through, pilot, identify. That's that review phase. So for example, where they worked through illustrative math in the spring of last year, a small group of teachers were piloting that. They were in the review phase at that time. Phase 3 is right where we are with IM, which is first stages implementation. And implementation requires support, professional learning, and really keeping a close eye on the timeline and what indicators we want to see for success to then make adjustments as needed should we need to. Outside of this lives areas that are sustained and going fine, but then every year we would look through our lens of what needs to be brought up and what we might need to look at. It also could be noted that at phase 2, we could after an evaluation, we could find out that we don't need another resource. We might, or we might need to revise what we currently have, or maybe look at our implementation a little bit better. So it's a little bit of a cycle, and it can kind of go back and forth depending on what's happening.
Can I ask a question about the implementation phase that we're in with the math curriculum right now? So is that something that, I guess, just trying to understand, has the council been established? And if they have, are they providing input?
That's a great question. So we actually have a math evaluation team that has already been established. Now moving forward, we're just kind of rebranding that. So then moving forward, we just want to have that common language. And actually tomorrow I'm going to be talking to some of our building administrators about that and how that might look, and moving forward, like a steering committee for that. So right now, that math team is up and running, but then the Curriculum Council is just a common term that we can use for any area that we want to revise that's using a consistent process over time. Does that help?
Okay, so the council isn't necessarily a set group of people that remain intact, like over depending on the area.
Yep, it could be
Thank you.
fluid. Yeah, so there could be a steering committee talking about doing something like that, where it could be a few people that would love to be it. That's their passion. They want to be involved. Do that for a while. There's some consistency over the years, but it really is meant to provide sort of a consistent approach to how we're looking at it, especially in the next few years. Yes.
Appreciate it.
So this example here shows you our current reality. If you look at phases of curriculum review, right now, should all go well tonight, we can enter an evaluation phase of literacy K-8, and we can talk more in depth about what that could look like. Right now, there's really nothing in resource review. But if you look at implementation, we have a lot of things happening right now with our primary focus on math, and that's where most of our energy is going. But it doesn't mean we're not paying attention to the other areas. We have our coordinators who are looking at the social science, the science implementation, working with teams and working with grades. But we all know that the capacity, we only have so much capacity. So what we would like to do over time is have a process that we can evolve to sooner rather than later, where we have a more balanced yearly approach to what we're doing when we're looking at curriculum and when we're reviewing curriculum. So there might be something in evaluation, something in resource review, something in implementation, and lots perhaps in just sustaining. But that's going to evolve over time, but that's kind of where we are right now. Some of it is even based a little bit on like COVID and things we were trying to start right before, and we really don't consider last year a great implementation year of, say, STEM scopes. So we want to say, okay, this is year 1, let's take a look at that and really give it the time it needs.
Can I ask for another clarification?
Yes.
Is Bridges still in the implementation phase, or has that been?
Bridges is used as an intervention now, and so it's sustaining.
Got it.
And we're even looking at other math interventions to supplement on top of that.
I just want to comment. I've been on the curriculum committee for several years with the community and parents, not the,
Yes.
academic one. And they've been very good about coming. The last meeting was a tremendous turnout. It was wonderful. And I think that we should definitely continue that. But I also have been upset because every time Maureen would come back and say, well, we got a new curriculum, we're going to give it to the teachers and see if they like it. We've never been able to really get our teachers all agreeing on anything, so we keep looking for something else. Can we maybe get more teachers involved in the beginnings of all this so that they, they can give their ideas and their suggestions before you go ahead and do everything?
Yes.
I think that would help if we could get more teachers involved in the math, in the social studies, in the reading, whatever the situation is.
Yes, I think the Curriculum Council can be a great place to really have those conversations and look for multiple ways to get staff involved. Maybe not all staff want to pilot, but they might want to be part of a focus group, and they might want to have multiple.
At least come and give their suggestions.
Yes, exactly. Like the more information that people have, the more opportunities and maybe different formats they have to get involved. So being creative about that, because it doesn't always mean piloting. It could mean you're doing other things to be involved in providing your opinion. So yes.
Doesn't mean we'll always agree on everything, because we won't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a, yeah, that's a.
Everybody can be heard at least.
Absolutely, yeah, the more voices, right, involved. And then right here, we just have a list of here's what we have that we want to continue to take a look at every year and kind of look, and you can see how some of the content areas are broken apart into K5, 6, 8, even literacy, K2, K5, 6, 8. There could be commonalities across there, but there might have to be some sub areas that we kind of pull out and address in a different way based on the needs of our students and what we're seeing their needs are. And the unique needs of the junior high as well, and the way that they are set up and how things might look for them.
So just so I understand too, and sorry if I missed it, but so these are the topics that could possibly go into phase 1 reviews, right?
Yeah.
And we can do multiple at once. We do not just do one at a time.
Yeah, exactly. We could potentially do something where we might be looking at like physical education, fine arts in tandem. Oftentimes it might be the best solution to look at a couple things at the same time because of the interconnectedness. Sometimes it might just be too much based on what's in that other bucket of implementation. We want to just kind of be very cautious about balancing it.
Sure.
But yeah, you could have a mix.
And how does the district determine what's going to go next in phase 1?
So what would be looked at is first where they have been through the phases. So right now we have a whole bunch in phase 1, implementation, phase 3, how that's going. And then looking at those guiding prompts that would allow us to figure out what might need to happen, which could be change in assessment, change in a standard, student performance. So we're constantly looking at those things through that lens. And our MTSS instruction team that meets every week, that's also a big part of it because we're looking at how it's actually being implemented and how the process is working for student performance.
And then when we get to the sustaining part, we've completed implementation, right? And something goes off the list. Math is implemented. There is going to be a system set up by which you'll be the team will be monitoring performance, but we're also going to set up through a strategic plan system a set of monitoring tools for the board and for the community as a whole for each of the important focus areas. And so we'll have sort of 2 independent groups looking at it with time.
Yeah, that's very helpful, yes.
Susan, so I'm looking at the implementation of phase 3, and I see math K through 5, math K2, no more corner, literacy K2, science K5, social science K6. With the environment we are in, how are staff doing, especially in the primary K through 2, who looks like they're taking on a whole new curriculum for the whole school, or for their whole, basically for everything they're doing within their day, and add into this the whole COVID thing.
Right. So this is not what you would ideally want to have set in place. How they're doing, I would say that they probably feel like they're juggling quite a bit, particularly coming back. It is, however, not their first time with STEM scopes. That came out last year, but that was quite a year to even begin looking at any type of resource and using it with any, Fidelity, for example. But I would say that I think for the most part, and I say I think because we would like to be able to be gathering more of this information through our auditing process coming up. How are they feeling about it? What do they feel their needs are? But I think some of these resources have been welcome additions because they have a lot of great assessments built in for them, tools that they can use. So it's allowing them to have something very clear and tangible that they can use, but they do have to get used to different platforms, and that's a lot going on in the elementary world where they have multiple subject areas. But we do also focus with our building leaders on prioritizing implementation. So it's not that science is not important or social science is not important, but math right now is extremely critical. And so we're putting a lot more implementation planning on that area and professional learning around that, like all year long. And we're building in the PD for STEM scopes in science as needed, as requested. So for example, Ann Fleming is reaching out. I'm pointing over here, building leaders that are sitting here, they might be booking Ann to come and do something when they feel ready, when they feel they're ready to do that. And also, we flip-flop between science and social science, which allows them to focus on one of those areas at a time. So they're not doing science and social science every day. But yeah.
So I guess to Randy's point is, we're in the implementation phase for all of this. Is that a year, or is it some of them will take 2 years?
Yeah.
Or how do we think about this? Is this something we have to get right this year, or is it an ongoing implementation?
So when we get into the math implementation plan, you can see the math plan piece where we actually have a 3-year goal for the math implementation, and it is broken up into phases and indicators of progress. And we also have a 2-year implementation plan for science and social science that has really, it's a bit of a lighter version of the math piece, but it's monitored mostly by Ann Fleming, closely working with the teachers and through Nicole and I, but looking at what professional learning do they need around these resources and around the standards in general and best practices in assessment. So there's a couple of key things for science and social science, but those two are, I should say, our 3-year plan with 3-year TBD, because we want to see how it's going. And once we get into implementation, looking at our indicators, we might have to make adjustments as needed. So we can always slow down, or we can always speed up if we have to.
So this year, we don't expect the teachers to be perfect.
No, perfection,
right?
no, no. As Dr. Bresnahan said, perfection is not the goal.
Never perfect.
Can I ask you, since social studies is near and dear to my heart, 7th and 8th grade, what are they using right now?
So right now they're using their inquiry by design model that Ann Fleming has worked on and created a scope and sequence that they can use. But what we're hoping to do is that Inquiry Journeys is a very awesome curricular resource. We're hoping that they will have something ready for us to potentially look at. But in the meantime, that's on Ann's list to kind of take a look at and see if there's any other resources they might need at some time in the near future. And because they're at the junior high, they don't have that heavy load of all the other areas that we can do things like be flexible and maybe have some subgroups on this curriculum council that might reach out and say, okay, like I'm talking about literacy K-8, that'll connect directly to, because a lot of those overlapping concepts of those standards and the inquiry that is in that model. So yeah, that's a dangler out there right now, those 7th and 8th grade teachers. Ann's been working with them, but right now, Inquiry Journeys is one of the best resources we found, and we want to see what they're going to come up with soon, hopefully soon, and then we can make some decisions. Yeah. So those are the areas. I talked about that. Okay. So then now that's sort of the review process in general. Now, right now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the math implementation plan, which will give you a really sort of live idea of what phase 3 implementation would look like. Here's a photo. Not as great as the live students in front of you, but interestingly enough, it's a 5th grade classroom, 2 classrooms at Bird Elementary last week. So we've got Mrs. Duffy's class, Mrs. Thomas's class, and over here we have some really cool work the students were doing. So they're working on volume, as you saw. I visited their classrooms, and later in the day, I got an email from Mrs. Duffy, and she said that she was very excited because at the end of the day, her students who are able to, this is like the beauty of an elementary classroom where you see worlds colliding with social emotional learning and math. And she has a positive reward system set up where students can buy habitats. They can buy like a little habitat or an animal, and they can make them over time because they earn some dollars for all their positive contributions to the class. Well, the students said, I think we need to figure out what the volume of our habitats are so that we can see if our pets are going to be, you know, having the appropriate habitat that they might need. And they went and they did it and they figured it out. So I thought that she was very excited, the connection that they're making on their own. You know, even though, you know, we have a brand new curriculum and there's a lot of explicit instruction, but there's tons of inquiry. It clearly is keeping the students' minds primed to kind of look for other opportunities. So I thought that was great. You know, in social emotional learning, to make those connections, it was really, really positive. So thinking about that, math implementation. So to Mr. Reed, to your point kind of about how that might look, we've got a 3-year math goal. And the goal includes the following components: student outcomes, looking at how they're doing; fidelity of implementation indicators. So those are how the teachers are using the resource the way it was intended to be used; a professional learning plan to go with it; measures that we're going to look at along the way that can indicate how we're doing; and an implementation calendar so that we can kind of keep on track and not forget where we are in the process, because with a lot going on, we want to make sure that we're maintaining that heavy focus on our math implementation. So the math student outcome goal is within 3 years of implementation of the illustrative math curricular resource, 80% or more of students across all demographic groups will be adequately supported by Tier 1 instruction, as evidenced by the Branching Minds tiered level report. So that is the system that we use to identify who needs additional support beyond Tier 1. They also will be meeting or exceeding their annual growth goals in iReady and show proficiency on illustrative math end of unit summative assessments. So those are the student outcome indicators that we would like to see. Our goal is to be there in 3 years, but we also are going to look at where we currently are and begin to identify what supports are needed based on what we're seeing across grades, across aspects of math, as well as maybe across different schools and what different schools might need.
And is this part of what Dr. Sager was talking about, of getting the constant feedback and the dashboards to see how things are going throughout the...
Yes, yes. Looking at what are those key performance indicators, and this one aligns really well with the implementation of a new math curricular resource. So
it just worries me a little bit that we're going to take 3 years to work on this when we've already spent the last 3 years working on it. I'd kind of like to hope that in 2 years we would have more of a...
Exactly. We really would like to get, obviously we want to get there as fast as we can, but we also know that implementing a new curricular resource is challenging, and there's a lot of other things that teachers are working on, as well as being, you know, still in the pandemic and still dealing with some of those challenges that we're facing, and just giving this space to make sure that we're using it slowly and carefully. And we will watch progress. So we are going to look at our data consistently. I'm very interested in, like, okay, how is it going, so that we can identify what are some pockets where we might need to identify what's not going well with implementation and where it's going swimmingly, and they're off and running.
Sorry, I would just, I guess, respond to that and say, I think we need to differentiate between implementation and use of the resource, because the reality is they're already using it. That's what we saw today, is that this math resource is being used, and I'm seeing just at a personal level, like, great success with it. So I'm actually, on the flip side, really excited that we're being very thoughtful and long-term about the implementation, because I do think at the end of the day, like, it's gonna make it more effective in the long run, but that, you know, if we're not at full implementation now, it doesn't mean that it's not being productively used.
I agree, and that's not, I don't want to be a negative person. It's just, I mean, 5 years, 3 years already, if there's another 3 years, that's a whole elementary level child's experience. So what I'm saying is, I like what you're saying, and it's all fine, but let's try, if we can, to get it going before the 3 years are up.
We'll be able to share how, we'll actually, I'll show you a few other things we're gonna look for that we'll be able to share out at frequent intervals, and it'll give you a sense on how it's going. They're like our indicators of progress.
I don't want to have to come back in 3 years and say, well, this didn't work, now we have to come up with something new.
Because we're looking for incremental steps to show us that it's getting better.
But doesn't that mean more, not so much that, it's like, it's the very beginning now. In 3 years, we hope to be perfect at it.
Yeah.
So we're just making these steps, but we give it 3 years, so we have the time to make sure that everything by that 3 years
And that's
is running
fine, as I
perfectly.
say, just so we don't have to start all over again.
And I think we're on the right track, Mardo. I think that's where we're headed.
Well, I just
Yeah,
wanna make sure.
no, I see what you're
Yeah,
saying,
so-
but I think that is where we're headed.
So implementation means it's being used. It's implemented. We're using it. Now we're in the phase where we're shaking down and finding what other resources we need. What's going to bring us up to the complete system, right?
Yeah, it's fine, I'm with you, I'm not.
You know, the first time you teach anything, you're going to find flaws in things. You know, schedules aren't going to work out, that sort of thing. And the second year you do better, and the third year, hopefully everything's perfect by that point. But what we have now is a major improvement over what we had before, right?
Thank you. I see it 8%. I'd almost like to see it a little higher. Set our goals higher, saying, hey, we can do this. You know, we have 3 years.
Yes, actually 80% is, and actually Katie or Tom could always help me with this too, because we've had so many conversations at our MTSS, but 80% is what the data typically says. We should have 80% as our goal. We always want 100. That would be our goal. But usually you are taking out extreme scenarios on either side, and a healthy system says that 80% should be there based on research on the MTSS tiers of progress. And if Katie or Tom have anything to add, that they can feel free to add it. But did I do that all right? Okay, thanks. So it's not, it wasn't necessarily our metric. We're going with the metric that the MTSS process recommends.
I just kind of look at it as if there's a class of 25 students.
Yeah.
That means five students in that class are not meeting that 80%.
But that
Keep
includes,
in mind-
that includes TDP students who need acceleration as
You
well.
could have kids in that 20% that fall on either end of the spectrum. So when you think about it, your universal core resource is designed to meet the targeted needs of 80% of your class. If you hit that, it's a great resource. And then how do you extend and support through that win time, through other resources in addition to that?
Yeah,
I think
it doesn't mean that only 80% of the students succeed. It means with this resource, 80% of the students succeed. Maybe another 10% require bridges, interventions to get up to succeed, right? So it's not that 80% of the students are only succeeding, it's that this resource gets 80% of the students to succeed.
And I think we heard a good example from one of our student presenters tonight who said she really appreciated the win time because she was able to get some advanced, more challenging material above and beyond. I think the other point I'd like to make, because when Susan came and we had this conversation about the math goals, it started out as a 1-year goal. And if we really sat and said, no, if we want to achieve this, it's going to take 3 years to see an impact on student outcomes. I think the false narrative that we create is thinking that there's a magic bullet that we can implement in 1 year and suddenly have test scores that demonstrate what we want to see. And so I think that I don't want to create an unfair measure or expectation, because change takes time, and for teachers to be able to really have the confidence and capacity to work with this tool, and not only just the core resources, but then to be able to address the needs beyond that, we owe them 3 years before we start saying this is what we should be seeing. So I think that's more of what it is. And then keep in mind too, our students, they talked a lot tonight about learning new vocabulary. So if you're learning new vocabulary now in 3rd grade, we're going to want to spiral and see that really take hold as they go throughout the years of school. And that's why that 3-year is going to be where hopefully that sweet spot, maybe sooner, maybe a little later for some, but ideally I think we want to give ourselves 3 years time to really assess our process and give ourselves the time.
So that's the outcome piece of the implementation, but then we have the Fidelity of implementation yearly goals. We got year 1, 2, and 3. We've already talked about this through our conversation a little bit, but the first year is use of curricular resource, which includes sharing and understanding of essential learning targets, the target for the lesson, and the actual lesson design, which the students shared with you all the components of it, the warm-up, the activity, the synthesis, and then the lesson synthesis, and then the cool down. So really making sure that people are comfortable with that and able to work on their pacing as well, so that we are providing students with an exposure to a year's worth of those rigorous standards, and then adjusting as needed within the unit, within the lessons, when we are having any issues with pacing. So we're going to continue to monitor that, and we're getting feedback from that through all the other pieces of it from teachers and principals walking into classrooms. And then next year is more the actual deeper dive into lesson planning and design, which is that heavier use of the formative assessment tools that are in the resource. And then year 3 is collaborative planning using evidence of student learning. So really getting into teams' approach to uncovering misconceptions, more of that action research way or a professional learning community way of looking at math with a team on how they're doing. So it's a higher level of sophistication of planning around that. So those are those 3. And we have, the board has the math goals. The board has the math goals that I linked, and you can go in and look, and it shows the calendar, and it shows, all of those pieces if you want to take a look at those as well. It has a rubric. So what we're looking at for implementation is a rubric that Illustrative Math actually created, and that we took, and it had many, many, many pieces of it, and we selected 3 pieces or areas of it that we felt would be the most helpful, most critical to get us up and running in an effective way. And so just, people can't look at 52 indicators or whatever. So we have 3 this year, 3 and 3. But we looked at what we considered to be high yield indicators, one that would have an impact across other areas as well. So the implementation calendar, like I said, we put that together. So it includes the math implementation team. It includes getting demonstration classrooms up and running. In fact, next week we're going to start with coaches being able to see it in action. Actually, this week, not next week. I'm confused. This week we're starting to see it with coaches. And then when we meet with coaches, we want to make sure that coaches have that deep understanding of what it should look like in the classroom. There's a teacher self-assessment survey, which reflects on the indicators that we just talked about in terms of how are you feeling about the lesson design, how are you feeling about the pacing, how engaged are your students is a question that I would like to see. So it's on there, like how are the kids feeling about it? And actually that one, it'll be happening this week. So we're gonna get some initial data back as baseline data so that we can support as needed if we see areas that teachers need a little extra help. And then leadership walkthroughs focused on year 1 indicator. So that'll be principals or principals with someone from their implementation team doing quick scans. Are we doing okay with pacing? Do we have our targets? Are we teaching the components of the lesson? Those are those 3 areas. And then one thing we really would like is that principals have opportunity to share their results and celebrations at those intervals. So it's almost like 3 cycles of teacher feedback, teacher feedback, leadership walkthroughs, and then principal sharing out what they're seeing. So looking at the teacher, the principal's thoughts, and then principals coming back and sharing. That we can identify what we need to do to make adjustments. And then parent survey, which we're in the early stages of finalizing that, kind of looking at that piece. But that is something that I would like input on actually from our curricular resource committee when we meet next week. Like, what questions do you think we should be asking parents, and give them some of that input and voice into that. And we already spoke a lot about this earlier this year, and even at the end of last year with the WIN structure that we have in place, the iReady personalized instruction, the junior high math extension, and math interventionist. So those are the other resources that we're using to support this implementation and our math goals, so that we are having all that in place. So back to that picture again, this is early stages. It's early stages, but I think we have a lot of positive celebrations to get us started, and we're gonna continue to work through that as a whole community, a whole District 59 community. The immediate next steps are those classrooms I talked about, continued illustrative math professional learning, which we have all set up for the entire school year, self-assessment coming this week, early next week, walkthroughs, and that curriculum resource committee meeting that we're having next week to kind of talk through some of this, get some feedback as well. And the last thing here is, I couldn't do anything without talking about Michael Fullen, because he's an expert on change and systems. And really looking at this quote here, it's all of the conversation we've been having, and it's the entire conversation we've been having with our strategic committee as well, planning committee. It's like really looking at, you need to be focused, we need to be empathetic, and we want to be persistent on our goal, but never stray from that core purpose. That core purpose is a rigorous, standards-based curriculum that engages kids. And if we have to adjust, we will, but that core purpose will be our North Star throughout this whole process. So I happen to be a super fan, so he had to get a little call out for me tonight, Michael Fullen. And that sort of concludes our plan for now, and we're going to continue to provide updates frequently on how this is going.
So Susan, I just want to say thank you, because literally in my 2 years on the board, that's one of the best presentations I've ever seen in terms of.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. It really has been a team effort, like this entire team, including the board members on strategic planning, curriculum committee, including all of our building leaders who co-developed this plan through multiple stages. And we want to continue to work through that process of getting voice at all levels on this work.
No, I appreciate that. And I think what I'm so excited about is the sustainable structure that you're putting around this, so that we actually have an ongoing way to review and evaluate, because we all know, like, we can find the best curriculum we're implementing this year, and 5 years from now, it might not be the best curriculum for our students. So I'm just really excited to see you're putting together a sustainable process that can evolve, and that it doesn't seem like it is taxing any individual group. Like, this council can evolve, like teachers have areas for feedback. So I just want to thank everyone who's been a part of this, because I think we're in a very exciting place right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Any
have
other
a lot of
questions?
faith in you. I think you'll do fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say the same thing. It's nice to have a review process that is iterative and will correct issues that come up along the way and improve continuously.
And I'll just add, because Susan has been absolutely amazing, and her ability to reflect, gather feedback from multiple groups, and then put it into an actionable plan has been remarkable. And what I love is that this is now going to be kind of that model structure for how we look across all content areas and how we really manage change from a curriculum perspective. And once we have that, then it becomes a little more what's expected for teachers, rather than being thrown into new things and not really know what's coming next. And, you know, everything's not going to be perfect with this implementation. I don't want to sugarcoat what you saw tonight. That's amazing. But there are challenges with any change, particularly around a professional practice in the classroom. And so I really appreciate that we are giving teachers voice for feedback to know, what are those roadblocks? What are those obstacles? How do we better support you? What is really specific around the change versus what is specific around illustrative math, and how do we tell the difference? And then how do we really see how it's going to impact kids in the long run? So those are the monitoring pieces that we're doing, and that we want to come back and share from all levels, so that we really have a solid implementation at the end that leads to the outcomes we're projecting.
Thank you, Susan. I think next up is the 10-year plan. So that's Albert, Ron. Eleni, you gonna come up too? Also, Eleni, just let you know, Eleni is hiding in the back. She did a majority of the work. So thank you, Eleni, for all the work you did on the 10-year plan, and letting Ron and Lynn. Thank you for letting Ron and Albert take credit.
Thanks, Susan, for raising the bar there. I'll let Albert handle this one.
You guys are great too. It was not not a comment on anyone.
Before we begin, first of all, this project, the facilities update, it is it's incredible. All the hard work. I sing the praises of Albert, Mr. Tiarina, and Eleni Barano. She's back there, right? Eleni, hello. She works in the business office as well. Extremely remarkable person. And the fact that she went above and beyond as well to put this document together with Albert's information, that just highlights how great of a place 59 is. So without further ado, I'd like you guys to check this out. A project like this, typically, it takes a long time to go through every single part of a building. Recognize, again, that it's flexible. It changes from time to time. And there are districts that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to vendors so that they do this. But they brought it in-house. So I just, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is good work in progress.
Pull the microphone up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, this is good work in progress. You know, right here, as you can see, with this first spreadsheet, I mean, one of the things that we really wanted to try to hone in on was identifying our future plans in regards to our assets, our buildings, our building envelope, our mechanicals, and you know what's coming for the future. And so, thankfully, we have done so much in the last 2 years. It's just mind-blowing. It's incredible. And we really, if I had to give it a percentage in regards to mechanicals, I would say we're probably at about 75% replacement as far as our mechanicals. And we're talking our chillers, boilers, rooftop units, roofing. I mean, we are in real good shape. There's still more to do, and that's hence the plan. But if you think of our parking lots, you know, just the amount of concrete work that's been out there, there's just been, I'm very grateful for all the work that's been done. And so here with this plan, the first tab, what it identifies the schools. Yeah. It identifies the schools, and then identifies the years across, and we identify by category. So that was the plan, was to identify each category, and the categories are outlined by our architectural, plumbing, electrical. And so one of the things that Elaine's been very great at doing is identifying our items by year, by category, but then when you click on a certain column, you click, yeah, there you can click on that. You can click on any of one of those. When you double click on it, double click on it.
Yeah, I think because I'm in view only.
Oh, okay.
But I can.
Let's see.
If I could quickly open up. Yeah, because I'm in view only.
I think,
Drive?
yeah.
How about that?
I think one of the problems we ran across related to this is, because this is every time you double click on it, it actually opens up another spreadsheet within the system
So
that you
I
could actually make
apologize.
changes to stuff. That I think having only a few people having access to this would be a good idea. And we have a copy made, which Eleni made a copy for me, so I was able to do the drill down and play around with stuff without messing up the original. I think that would be maybe the way we want to go on this for going forward.
Right. So where I was getting to though was, as you click on one of those columns, what that then does is it opens it up to the detail of work that we've planned for. And again, this is a moving document. It's fluid. So, you know, there's still going to be changes. This is what I would call our best draft at this point, but it's continuously, it's work in progress. And so that was our main focus to start with, future projects. What do we see coming down the road within the next 10 years or so? And so that's what that was based off of. Now, the other thing that we did with this 10-year plan is we also wanted to create a historical. We also want to know what have we done, and how can we continue to have one place, a one-stop shop, if you will, in regards to keeping track of the work that we've done, so that way from years from now, when I'm no longer here, we're still able to track that and go back in time. And so that's something else that, working with Elaine, that we've been able to implement. So there's also a historical tab. So it shows like the work that we did this summer, and then in detail, it shows dollar amounts that go with that, and then the year previous to that. 2 years back. So I think that was really important for us, is to be able to track our historical work that we've done. There we go. You have that.
Do you remember when you first came and I told you about the book that Tony Grassi had? And
Yes.
that's exactly what it was, something like this, except it only went out 3 to 4 years. Now you've gone out considerably longer time.
And I would like to go out even
But
further.
that's the way we used to do it, but we only did it for like every 3 years or so.
Right.
So this
I
is
mean,
good, but it's the same idea.
Exactly, it really is. I mean, my whole thought process is now that we've implemented these pieces of equipment, we've installed them, now is the time to start planning their replacement.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's
so
the
we
way.
know when we put in a chiller, it's got 25-year lifespan.
Yeah.
Count out 25 years, mark it down, and we're gonna have to start looking for it.
Yeah, because, you know, there's many, I know I most likely won't be here 25 years, so, but at least for that person that's replacing me will say, hey, at least they had some forethought, and yeah, this chiller is due, because I could tell you, I mean, we put a lot of time and investment just to look at the age of our equipment. There really wasn't a location to go to, at least we couldn't find at that time, but we were able to get the information. But this right here, having it all in one spot really will help. So yes.
No, this is good. It's kind of like the example with home ownership. You know, winter comes and you get your HVAC checked out, and they ask you when's the last time you did this or when's the last time you did that, and you don't know. And it's good to have a record as to the work that's been done.
And I guess just for a minute, like backtracking on this, I think we made the decision after the bond issuance and many public comments saying, hey, we had no idea that all of these huge issues were coming due, and why wasn't the public aware of this? And so our goal, and we actually changed board policy about a year ago to say that we were going to have annually a long-term review of projects that were coming up, and we decided that 10 years is about like how far out we wanted to look. But like to Dr. Sager's point, to the extent we can then populate that with even more information, even better. And so I guess that's another question I wanted to have is this the right time of year then? Because I feel like now we are implementing this sort of long-term view. Is this the right time of year to kind of continually have this conversation? Like, do we want to make it a September annual thing, or is there a more logical time of the year going forward to just make sure that we keep revisiting this and like updating and looking out 10 years?
Yeah, Mrs. Lang, I would say August or September, because now this gives us an idea as to what projects we would like to do for the summer. And in order to get ahead of those projects, you want to go out to bid, you want to do everything right. So if we were able to bring this up to the board around this time or even the month before, I think that would be the best.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I'd like to maybe see us add that as an ongoing agenda item then in whatever you prefer, August or September, but just to have that accountability to us that we're monitoring this and updating. And I don't want to get ahead of where you're going, but I guess I had a question too of like, how does this then tie to budget planning? And if that's later in your presentation, just save it.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that it does. There is a lot of detail in here. Now, granted, there are going to be items that pop up. But, for example, if Albert clicked on, which one do you want to click on? Okay, so I do know, based on our projections, that Admiral Byrd has in 23-24, based on what he clicked, this is the amount of money that I'm going to have to look at just on that building for that 23-24 time frame. So it will tie in specifically. And this is why, I don't know if you guys recall when we just had this discussion about moving dollars into the 60 fund, the capital projects fund, when it comes to any sort of excess funding, it's for reasons like this. It's our rainy day fund. So for example, you see some of these items that Albert has identified. We have those dollars put away. It's a rainy day fund. It's just like your own house, kind of like Mr. Mancia was saying. So it's completely tied in. And then you even notice that at Friendship, we had the gym floor situation, right? Well, we do have the funding for it in the 60 fund, but it's because we were smart and prudent in making sure we knew what we were saving and where to put it. Because once you put it in that 10 or that 20 fund, it's harder to get out. It's operating. The 60 fund is your savings, and that's what we've been trying to do so that we can hit everything. And to add to your comment, which is great, there are going to be times when you see that the dollar amounts are a little higher or a little bit lower, but we have that money set aside if we're responsible, and that's what we're trying to do with our buildings, and that's why we're trying to keep them up to speed.
I don't want to get too, I don't want to get too in the weeds on it, but if we, like for instance, if it's a 10-year plan and we're looking at 2031, are there estimated dollars for that far out? And if so, are we taking into account inflation and all that good stuff?
Yes, we are. Albert's got this here.
We did. We, between Elaine and I, we did factor in inflation. And we know with inflation that fluctuates too. So I mean, business right now, business standards inflation rates are right around that 4%. Now they're higher because of COVID. So we factored in 6%. So these are our best estimates, but we did include that. And we know that 10 years out, I mean, it's really tough to gauge that. But we factored on, okay, what's today's best estimate, and then we compounded that by 4% for the 2031.
So I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this as a question, but I think my only other sort of questions related to this are just that it's not really a question, it's more of a comment, but continue to make as strategic use as we can of this data, because I'm thinking that obviously in the years we have a surplus, great, that can go into 60, but the situation I don't want to be in is one where we know 5 years from now we have $3 million in capital costs and we haven't done any savings beyond just the surplus that's left over, and therefore that year comes around and suddenly we have this amount. So is there a piece of this that is already capturing that, or like how are we planning in advance for those big dollar value years?
So for an example, if we know we just installed chillers this year, so we know that their life expectancy is anywhere between 20 to 25 years. So what we would want to do is we would want to start to plan at that 15-year mark, at least to start to have that conversation about how we're going to save and plan for that to be able to afford to do it. We wouldn't want to wait until we've met that life expectancy. We would want to start to plan that ahead of time. So there would be discussions with finance and with Ron as far as how we would go forward with that. But absolutely, Terry, that's a great point. I mean, that's what we want to do is you save up because you know you're going to have to eventually replace it.
So having seen this for several months at the facilities meetings, right? The reason we wanted to get this shown now from the facilities point of view is this is budget time, and this shows we're being responsible and we're planning ahead and we're avoiding surprises, right? Because they're banking on essentially, here's what's going to come up. Do you mind showing some numbers, or can you click on priority listing by subcategory on the bottom there?
While they're doing that, I kind of want to add two things. I think one thing to add on here is that just because it says we're going to do it in 22 or 23, 24, we may end up doing it a year earlier, may end up doing it a year later, or maybe a couple years later. This is a tool to say, hey, this is coming up. Let's look at the system to see if this is something we need to do, something we don't need to do.
Yeah, and then they even have this priority list of here's health and safety stuff, the red stuff we have to get done within the next 3 years, right? And then the yellow stuff is the stuff that's right. I don't want to do your presentation. You do it.
You're doing great. And I think the other thing I want to add into is like included in this is not only the big projects, but when you clicked on that Admiral Burr year, they're smaller projects.
Right.
Those are a lot of things that we'll be doing in-house as well too, that we won't be going out for bid. So like replacing a door or electrical outlet or making some ADA, type of things. Those are going to be done in-house, and they're part of health, life, safety. There are also things that can go out to bid. And, there's also the possibility where, this last 2 years we did the phase 1 and phase 2 of the project where we hit about 75% of our mechanicals and stuff like that. We still have another swing to make at our HVACs and other stuff in the next couple years. Maybe that's spread out over 2 years. Maybe do it all at once for possibly economies of scale. Get one contract in and stuff like that.
These 3 years we're going to do HVAC. Let's kind of lump them together in 1 year, get one big contract, and save some money.
Right. Or same thing with a flooring, or instead of partially doing a roof in parts, like Grove, big schools, sometimes you do it over 3 years. Well, maybe we can do it all at once kind of thing for that savings of one time. Look for that savings kind of thing. So I mean, that's the best part of this. That's the best part of this plan. It's going to be flexible to make changes, move stuff year to year, and back and forth.
I agree. I think it's a wonderful long-term plan, but I think we're going to have to make adjustments along the way. And the main thing is we have to be sure we have enough money, because I don't want to have to go out for any more bond issues to do this type of work.
And that's the key word, and I'm going to go back to what Mardell said, and Courtney, it's about living within our means. and as a district, you know, and we do realize that. So that's why, again, you know, as difficult as a thing this was for Albert to do, you know, it's a beautiful piece. So, for example, like if you clicked on the access controls and video surveillance for 21-22, that will be off after this year. It's, again, you know, being efficient, we're spending correctly. We realize that we're doing what we can to keep our you know, our facilities to speed. And then once we get things updated, you know, I mean, then who knows what, but we want to make sure that we take care of the essentials first.
Yeah, as we talk about priorities, one of the main priorities has always been the health, life, safety. You know, our architects come through every 10 years, and they walk our buildings, and they cite certain things. And so one of the things that we know that we have to do, a must do, is what's been reported that must get done within those 10 years. And so that we know that the survey was done right around at 2015. It was probably issued 2016. So we know that by 2026, we really should be you know, completed with what the architects at least reported to ISB. It's not going to be the entire book, but it's what they reported. And so, and that's one of the things that we have here. So this right here, you can see the very top, it says health, life, safety. So those are the important, the urgents, the must-dos. And then you can see in the detail for the years, 21, 22, and this can still all change, but you can see as we go out to 25, 26, it really starts to minimize. And the reason for that is because I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, we have to get that work has to be completed by that time. So these are the things that we start to look at now. We start to get, you know, our estimates, our best estimates, and who else do we need to get involved to have these items replaced by that time. But if I were to click on the detail, so now it breaks it all down. And this is what's really, for me, I love what Eleni has been able to do with this, because it really provides us, you know, good detailed information as to what our plan is. Okay.
So last thing I think what you need to do is go to. Then the next thing you need to do, I think you need to show everybody the dollar amounts for the 10-year.
Yeah, 10-year plan by
Yep.
10-year
school.
plan.
Go over one more. Category of school.
This
Doesn't
guy?
matter.
There you can see better. That guy.
There we go.
Okay, so this is by school, the dollar amounts. Dr. Sager, remember the bottom's the grand total. We had a funny situation with finance facility. He's like, wait, what's that building? I'm like, no. We're like, please, no. So this is kind of what, you know, this is our rough estimates as of right now. Again, things can change. But if you look at, for example, the first one here is 22-23, and based on estimates, we are looking at $5.4 million, which when we discuss the idea of planning for the budget for the following year already, this is the type of stuff we look at. And then for the year after, it's another 6.1. Then after that, we kind of see some decreases. But overall, over the entire life of the 10 years, we're looking at $33,800,000. So this gives us time to say, okay, this is how we're going to plan for these years going forward, how to adjust, so that we don't have to go out and just, you know, go out and get a, you know, any sort of funding from another source. It's up to us to also plan as well.
It would be interesting to see what those numbers were for the previous 10 years, how they compare, if you could come up with those numbers, just the total numbers.
What's interesting, too, is that since Phase 1 and Phase 2 were over $35 million right there.
Because during the last 10 years, we had to go out for bond issue along the way for this type of stuff. And
But
We only went out to bond issuance once for mechanics for the last 2 years. The other two were to build buildings.
well, it was for maintenance because we couldn't.
Would be a separate, in my opinion, would be a separate than this
point is, I'd just like to see what the comparison is.
For sure, but this is the number that emphasizes, and I can't say it enough, the reason why we build money into that 60 fund, so that if we do have a surplus one year, that, hey, this is great, we added over a couple of years, now we have money set aside for, like the $5.4 million for next year, which we do have built into the budget for next year. 6.1, we'll be ready for that. That's the reason why we're planning ahead, and thus the 60 fund's importance.
Yeah. No, and that's the important thing. It's a lot of money. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, but actual taxpayer dollars that we're using to spend that, and we need to make sure that we do our due diligence and we're doing educated purchasing decisions. So I like it.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the work that went into this. Thank you, Eleni, and thank you to both of you. And I just also, I think, want to add to this that when we continue to have like variations on it, if there's anything that's significant that comes up that's not a part of that annual update, like we would be glad to be a part of those conversations. And I just appreciate that now, again, it's very similar to the curriculum. You've created a structure that's sustainable and will be beneficial 25 years from now, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, guys. All right. Okay. Yay, we're consent. All right. We're at the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, be it resolved that on the 13th day of September 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented and amended 7.01 through 7.06 as printed on the consent agenda.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Anybody have any questions?
I
Okay,
just
roll
had
call,
one-
please.
I have one brief question. For the Press 107, we removed the one item on electronic networks. Are we having lawyers look at that? What's?
Yeah, so 6:235, there was a question about Press's updated definition of a network. It's interesting because they added a definition that included devices and computers, which technically can be problematic because those are not technically a network. So I called Press and talked to their attorney and got an idea of the spirit of what they were trying to do with that, and they admitted they're not technical people. So we are working to revise that policy to capture the idea. What they were hoping to do is say devices are still under district control regardless of where they are being accessed. So we're working on language that would more accurately reflect that without creating a technical issue, because in the future, if we create a policy or any practices that resulted in a network being applied to the definition of a student device, that would be very problematic. So we're going to be able to accomplish the goal of what that draft was, but do it that would be technically accurate. And they asked us to share that with them when we have it. So I said, absolutely, we will do that.
It was
So-
lawyers just deciding to redefine something so the definition would work later.
Yeah. Yeah. No offense to you,
But
lawyers.
all the other
Not, yeah,
107
not,
all
not
the
that.
other
Not, I'm
107
not
stuff was
looking at
good.
anyone in particular on the board. But yes, we will bring that. So we're pulling that one. We're going to deal with that one separately on its own, and we will bring that back for discussion as we work that through.
Are you ready?
So do we need to pull 7.04?
No, it's already been pulled. I just
It's
want to
already
point out,
been
it was,
Okay.
of the Press 107, it wasn't included.
Okay.
Okay, because I was looking for that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Lang,
Aye.
Mancia,
Aye.
Ventrielli, aye. Reed,
Aye.
Sager,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
and Espino.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
We're on to action items, the water bottle filler stations, which is one of the first things coming out of our ESSER 3 money.
I can make the motion. Be it resolved that on the 13th day of September 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education recommend Ferguson for $47,010.87 for Oasis bottle fillers, conversion kits, and bottle filler Versa filter kits.
I'll second.
I'd just like to say thank you for this work. It was a great, thoughtfulness. I know a staff member had reached out to me asking me about this, and I was saying, hey, it's already on the agenda. We're going to be approving it next month. So great work. Thank you, guys. Now I'm looking forward to getting those things installed as quickly as they can get to it.
Yeah. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Mencia?
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
And Lang.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Okay.
I'll do the next one.
Okay, action item 8.02.
Let me see it on the board here. Whereas one proposal was received for a dual language audit, whereas Adelante Educational Specialist submitted a proposal meeting district specifications for an internal audit of dual language. Now therefore be it resolved on the 13th day of September 2021, the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 59 awards a contract for a dual language 80/20 model review, planning, and recommendations for improvement with a total cost of $51,800.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, before we take a roll call, so this, we're only looking at the Spanish dual language. We're not going to be looking at the Polish dual language, which is the 50/50?
Not this phase. We would like to just look at the 80/20 model initially and then see what the recommendations are from that. And then from there, we can determine and how the process goes in general. And then if we see great value in it, we could do that as a next step, or we could do something on our own. So we're kind of trying to wait and see how that goes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Quick question, the scope schedule for the audit itself, what kind of time period are we looking at?
So it would begin as soon as it is approved to work through the phases of gathering all the feedback, the data analysis. It would be done in January with hopefully a presentation of the board in February.
Sure. Okay.
Roll call, please.
Petrielli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
And Mencia?
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Action item 8.03, approval of literacy audit contract. Do you have a motion?
I can make the motion. Whereas one proposal was received for a literacy audit, whereas Laura Belchenko, Read Learn, Achieve LLC submitted a proposal meeting the district specifications for an internal audit of literacy. Now therefore be it resolved on the 13th day of September 2021, the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 59 recommend a contract for a Phase 1 literacy audit with a cost of $8,800 with a total cost of $16,363, including professional learning for staff.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So just a question on this one. I'm wondering with the literacy audit, I was surprised to see that we did have only one proposal submitted. Do we feel like there's any reasons for that, or?
So looking at phase 1, we sought out Laura Belchenko based on recommendations from some of our neighboring districts, and she has worked with our district before in the past. Laura comes with a great deal of experience, and she works at the state level also on standards and our standards assessment and standards revision. So the lens that she brings is somewhat unique in the sense that she has that standards approach, and then we can really dive deep, and she can provide some professional learning and help us gather that information that we need. So she was recommended and sought out, and we're looking at just this initial phase 1 for now, and then we can see where we go from there.
So just for reference, we don't follow like a typical bidding process for this. So it really was more catered to seeking out what would meet our individual needs as a district.
Makes sense.
Roll call, please.
Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Mencia?
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. And the motion passes.
Okay, action item 8.04, approval of donation from Enchanted Backpack to Robert Frost Elementary. Could I have a motion?
I'll do it. Be it resolved that on the 13th day of September 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the donation from Enchanted Backpacks to Robert Frost Elementary School with an estimated value of $7,000. This donation will provide school supplies, clothing, hygiene items, and books to Robert Frost families. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to the Enchanted Backpack in writing expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Now these are part of the back-to-school items that were distributed just for school started, Robert? Or these some different?
I believe that was from Remax.
This is something different. So Enchanted Backpack will supply backpacks filled with school supplies and books to the entire school population. So being awarded this grant is a huge honor and helps us tremendously. And then we focus all of our efforts in getting backpacks and supplies to the families at the schools who don't have Enchanted Backpack at our beginning of the year back to school event.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Mencia?
Aye.
Petrelli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Action item 8.05, approval of donation from Enchanted Backpack to Salt Creek Elementary School. Do I have a motion?
I'll do it. The be it resolved that on the 13th day of September 2021, I lost it.
Yeah, you jumped ahead.
Sorry.
No problem. I'll wing it. Yeah.
Winners don't wing things.
Yeah. Be it resolved that on the 13th day of September 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the donation from Enchanted Backpack to Salt Creek Elementary School with an estimated value of $2,000. This donation will provide staff items such as office accessory pack, electric pencil sharpeners, lamination machine, Post-its, cooking package, and holiday package. Salt Creek will also receive a $500 check to be used to purchase treats for staff for a special lunch or surprise. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to Enchanted Backpack in writing expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Daisy?
So, is Enchanted Backpack local, or is it like a nationwide thing?
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
It's local, and it's like an application process. So in my former district, so any school can apply and ask for specific things. And that's why you'll see different donations depending on the site and what the needs are. And they come and they do an amazing job and just give away a ton of things to schools.
now, I was saying, it's pretty. This is pretty awesome. It's about $9,000 we've received from 2 of our schools, so it's been really awesome to help our schools. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Ready?
Yep. Roll call, please.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Mencia?
Aye.
Petrelli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
And Sager?
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Action item 8.06, approval of donation to Claremont Elementary School from Chris and, Cartagena. And Patty, I'll just say the last name.
Karlovic?
I'll do it. Be it resolved that on the 13th day of September 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the donation for Mr. and Mrs. Garlowitz, Prosperity Fee 5, whatever it is, Claremont Elementary School in the amount of $500. Donation to be used to purchase books for the dual language program. Further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate with Mr. and Mrs. Garlowitz, Prosperity in writing expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education. This donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
I will second, and just want to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Garlevich, and I believe Prosperify is Mr. Garlevich's financial business, so very generous of them to support the program.
And he's a former board member too as well.
Yes.
And his son goes to school at Claremont in the Polish school.
Any other questions or comments?
That is very awesome. Thank you, Chris, if you're watching at home.
Roll call, please.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Mencia?
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
And Schumacher.
Aye.
And the motion passes. And I'm sure Chris is gripped watching us tonight.
Special interest topic 9.01. This is Ross's time to be famous.
Good evening. The district received 3 FOIAs since our last meeting and responded to all of them appropriately.
Okay, action item 9.02 is something we've added this month and will be continuing to add. It's going to discuss our COVID-19 dashboard.
Our COVID-19 dashboard is available to our public on our website. We also review close contact quarantines in addition to the positive cases that we see on the dashboard regularly, and we also look for trends in our data. So I'll report out on averages over the last 5 weeks that we've been fully in school and our total numbers of cases and quarantines, and a couple notes on trends and scenarios that we're watching. Over the last 5 weeks, we saw an average of 10 positive student cases per week, an average of 1 positive staff case per week, an average of 35 student close contact quarantines per week, and we had no staff quarantines for close contact. In this school year in total, we've had 59 student positive cases, and for reference, we have approximately 5,800 students in the district. In total this year, we've had 191 student quarantines. We also track whether those occur internally in our school settings, which may be the bus, the classroom, or an event, or outside of the school. 62% of the student quarantines for close contact have occurred in school settings, and the large majority of those are on buses. We have had 0 epidemiologically linked cases or internally transmitted, as noted by our local health department. And we also look at the percentage of students and staff that have reported positive cases over the course of a week in relation to the school population to give us a percentage of reported positive cases per week. Typically, we look at if that number is inching towards 3% or going over 3%, which would indicate that we need to make a change in our mitigation factors or consider alternates. 1.18% has been the highest percentage we've seen in any of our settings in any week so far this year. And finally, we're keeping a close eye on 2 important scenarios. One is our numbers of close contacts on our buses. The 3 to 6 foot rule exemption does not apply to the bus setting, and so we are close contact tracing at 6 feet on our buses. And the other is athletic events. Now that we've reintroduced athletics, we did have a group quarantined for close contact after a practice. We want to make sure we keep an eye on that, and we're looking at all of our extracurriculars and all of our situations where we know we have students in close proximity to each other.
I have a comment more for the board. I know we did some adjustments today to rearrange some items into the agenda. I would recommend that maybe this item also get moved up to the front. I receive a lot of questions and comments from parents as to the status of these items, and I'm sure a lot of them logged in today to kind of get an update too.
Good idea.
Can I ask roughly what our ratio to quarantines to cases? How many quarantines we get per case?
I'd have to do the math and look at the individual cases, and I'd say it would be very different depending on if it's a quarantine in a classroom setting versus a quarantine on a school bus versus an event. So that's something that I could look into, try to calculate and put in our Friday update.
Okay, thank you.
So can you kind of go over the quarantine for the busing? Could you talk, we're using 6 feet as a...
That's correct. Our exemption that allows us to look at close contacts in the 3 to 6 foot range only applies to the classroom setting. So that does not apply to lunchrooms, to buses, to hallways, to athletic events. So in all of those areas that are outside of your typical classroom setting, we do have to look at a 6 foot proximity to the positive case.
And why is that? Why is that? Just
That's IDPH and Cook County Department of Public Health guidance.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's why I'd say it's pretty impossible to get 6 feet of social distancing on a school bus.
That's correct. Yes, as you know, we have driver shortages, and we are doing everything to make sure that we have as many drivers as possible, but we do not right now have the ability to space students at 6 feet.
And as far as the mitigation strategies go on the buses, are the bus companies doing a good job as far as the assigned seating, keeping the windows open, et cetera, or are we seeing some gaps that need to be addressed?
We have asked our admin to be very aware of assigned seating and mitigation strategies, and so they are regularly checking in on buses, and if there are issues, working with the bus companies to make sure that they resolve them. We do have masks available on all of our buses, and we have seating charts on all of our buses.
And for quarantines that are generated from close contacts on the bus, is that because they've been within 6 feet for how long? What time?
It's a 15-minute time frame, and
So
for
with
most
longer
cases,
bus routes, we're going to be above 15 minutes, right?
correct. And for most cases, we're also looking at cumulative time. So if it's the same students in the AM and PM, we have to add up the time frame for both routes.
Katie, I'm just curious, how short, I know we're not the only district that's short buses, but how short are we as far as routes go? Do we know?
I'm going to pass that to Ron.
Right now, we are at 14 routes that we are short.
Okay.
And we're way better off than a lot of districts around us.
Yeah, because I know the high school changed, at least Elk Grove changed their route schedules where they, if my daughter took the afternoon bus home, she'd have to wait till, even though school got out at 3:10, she would have to wait till 3:50 for the bus to take her home. The bus route will go out and do a route, come back, pick up another group of kids and take them on their route home.
Wow.
There are districts.
And that happens in the morning as well too.
There are districts that are canceling particular programs. I know, for example, where my wife works, they had to cancel before school, like pre-K, probably like all sorts of educational pieces just because of that.
And it's not like the bus companies aren't trying. I mean, you go,
I know.
you go to the farmer's market, the first, they're there at the farmer's market. I know, I've seen them out on, outside their thing,
Yeah.
with holding the sign and stuff like that and trying, so I know they're trying.
I have seen it too, yeah.
But I mean, they're not the only ones, everyone's
No,
suffering.
everybody
So
is just,
we appreciate everything they're doing, trust us.
yes, 100%.
But I think even going back to Dr. Russell, the numbers this week have been going down, correct, as far as the...
So our positive cases have been trending down. We went from, let's see, just the last 3 weeks, 18 positive student cases to 9 to 6, and so far this week 5.
Oh, good.
And if I remember, you did calculate on their a percentage or something like that. That was effectively similar to cases per 100,000. It was like 0.2, something like that, right?
So our positive cases per the population,
Yeah.
yes, and the highest we've seen all year was 1.18%.
Yeah, which kind of tracked with the community rates in the area.
Correct.
New continuing business and announcements, 10.0. Does anybody have anything to add?
I had a question. Did anybody else decide to go to either the EdRed or the North Cook Division meetings coming up in a couple of weeks? I know Terry and Tom and I are going. Terry and Ron and I are going, but are any other board members going to either of them?
No.
One, okay. I have another one of my books with all the historical things going way back that I'm passing out. This is for you and Joe. If you don't want one of these, pass it on down and let some of the, I didn't make extras for the SLT, so if you don't want it, pass it on to the SLT.
Thank you, Mardell.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mardell.
You're welcome. Are we ready for board reports yet?
Well, let's make sure that anybody has any changes.
I have one. Daisy and I have decided that we would like to cooperate and collaborate and teach a class or offer a class for English learners of the parent, in the parent group. Because I've had parents say to me at meetings, I wish that I could speak English because I can't help my children with their homework. So Katie and I are Daisy and I rather, are going to, if with Terry's approval, I've already mentioned it to Terry, and see if we can do that maybe for the next 10 weeks and then take time off in the winter and then come back again. Talked a little bit about where we should do it, and I think the idea is if we try to take it into one of the schools, somebody might think that we're being, playing favors or something. So probably we'd want to do it here in one of the rooms in this building because this is pretty easy for everybody to get to, and we've got big rooms with big tables to spread people out and blackboards and so forth. So that's our thought. So hopefully, saying this at the meeting, this will get out, and then we'll, after I work with Terry and the other person, I can't remember his name that you mentioned, Terry, we can figure out how to get the information out to the schools and through the online and so forth. I'll work with you, and we'll give it a try and see how much
And
of an
Mardell,
interest
have you
there is.
considered the other direction for people in the dual language program whose parents speak English, giving them opportunities to learn Spanish?
No, I think we're just talking right now about trying to help the parents who want to learn English to help their children, because that's what prompted this whole thing. And having been a teacher, I think I can handle this, and Daisy obviously knows Spanish, which I don't, so that will help.
But maybe we can also just see if parents or someone will like that also, give it as an option and see what the outcome is from parents and community.
I didn't hear you, but
For our board members who were parents in dual language, did you know Spanish going in?
No, my kids never spoke it to me either.
I did.
So I did, but my husband did not, and he commented many times throughout the pandemic that he wished he did because he couldn't support the education in the way he wanted to.
Well, I had Spanish, and I can say it and read it, but I don't remember anything except houses, casa, and once, dos, y tres, and so forth, and whatever. But
Definitely wouldn't require you
but
to
I don't
teach it.
speak it.
Appreciate that you have something you want to teach, and I mean, maybe
But
it's something to
but
explore
you're
if
supposed to teach in the
someone else
language
would
that you
volunteer.
want them to learn, and I will teach it in English.
I think it's a great idea, Mardell. I like using the admin building, and you mentioned about not using one school. But maybe we rotate the schools too, so it makes it easier for some families, because this admin building is located in the southwest corner of our district.
Well,
and
we can start it here, and then
maybe we
in
figure
the
out if we
spring
can
go
rotate
to
it between
another
schools, allow
location.
for travel time for families to maybe make
see
it
how
easier.
people feel about it.
Yeah, so I did some questioning and investigating, and I know that we have current programs that are offered to our parents already for that, and we partner with the high school district. So I definitely wanted to get in contact with our new director of multilingual programs, Joshua Perdomo, and then we can explore what the needs are and then discuss how we might move forward.
Unfortunately, those have been offered free lessons have been offered at Harper and in District 214 a long time. Our people don't seem to want to get over into there, so hopefully doing it in our own district, it will be more popular and easier for them to attend. And this idea came from a parent, so I mean, it's not out of my head, it came from somebody else's mouth.
Thank you. So I think we'll go on to 11.0 report to the Board of Education.
I'll do something quick. This weekend, or this Friday, Randy and I were at the Juliet Low Fun Fair. Randy and I were also in the Juliet Low Fun Fair dunk tank this weekend, and we probably were dunked a good 25, 30 times over the course of the night. But awesome event. Lots of parents were there. Lots of parents were excited to be back on school grounds and having an event, and the kids had a great time. But it was a great fundraiser. The weather was great, and everyone really enjoyed it.
So Dr. Sager and I met today, as well as one previous time, in connection with the Strategic Planning Committee, and the SLT and Dr. Bresnahan have made great progress at helping us to represent our strategic planning goals in a dashboard type of document that then leads to increasing levels of detail, mainly for the administration and less for the board. But this is strategic planning process that we sort of had to drop in lieu of the last year and COVID and all of the adapting we had to do. And so it's a great time with Dr. Bresnahan's leadership beginning to restart this. And so the board will be meeting again in a committee of the whole in 2 weeks. And we will go through some of the materials that the SLT has prepared and Joe and I have reviewed. And we're looking forward to really identifying those goals and what we're trying to accomplish in the next year, as well as looking out 5 years.
I just want to add that, we are talking about the agenda, and one of the reasons why we made some changes to the agenda today is to try and bring things more up front for people to discuss, kind of like we're going to move the COVID discussion up front, more from a possibility for transparency for the community members. I mean, right now it's almost 8:15. We've been meeting for 2 hours and 15 minutes. If we started now, we'd just be we haven't even started talking about the facility plan or the curriculum review, and it's hard for families to stay around that long with things going on at kids' bedtime and stuff like that. So that's why we want to move stuff up so next month, hopefully we'll have a new agenda layout with the important items near the front of it. And I don't mind getting dunked, so if you have other fun fairs coming forward, just not in the winter, please. With that,
It's nice to see people in the audience tonight, very nice.
yes, see our principals and stuff. So with that, can I get a motion to move into closed session?
Did you want to do?
Oh, did I skip you? Do you have another report?
Yeah. Well, so now with the shift, we're going to kind of make the superintendent's report a little bit more of just an oral report out of items from our team. So really, I just have, kind of one item that I wanted to talk about, and I think it ties in really nicely with what we talked about earlier tonight, and seeing, the progress that we're making, and really looking at the curriculum review process, and looking at how hefty this year is. I think we also discussed a little bit about how, I think Ron mentioned, this year we anticipated being more normal, and it really is proving to be anything but. And so we're having to learn to do things in a different way. I think Dr. Ossel's report demonstrates how different some things have to be, and how careful, and the added pressures of having all of our students back in person, which is absolutely the goal, but we have to operate differently. And I think it's just an important time to acknowledge the amount of work that our teachers, our staff, our support staff, our nutritional services department, our administrative team, our building leaders out in the buildings, our central office staff, our health services staff. They really are doing things that really none of us had prepared for before. Oh, our custodial and maintenance crew. It's just been absolutely amazing what everyone has really been able to accomplish in the start of the school year. And I wanted to just take this opportunity to acknowledge being out in the buildings and seeing truly great things happening, students learning, but also really acknowledging the fact that it's a tough start to the school year. And my word this year is grace. And I hope that I have had a lot of grace extended to me in my first year here in District 59. Such a positive, warm welcome. And I just want to acknowledge that grace is extended out to everyone in District 59. Our teachers, our staff, our principals and assistant principals, our Board of Education. So everyone to really understand that perfect is not the goal. We are not going to accomplish, student outcome increases in 1 year's time. Right now, the fact that we have our students back in our building, that we have amazing social emotional learning happening to really address the needs that we didn't know existed up until them coming back into school. And taking the time and the energy and the effort to acknowledge that, to pause, to reflect, and to give ourselves some good pats on the back for the work that has been accomplished so far. I know we are not alone in District 59 by any means. I think this is a public education crisis at this time. And so I just want to say a wholehearted thank you to this amazing team, because it truly has been an amazing start, but I know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and I want to make sure everybody knows that we can pace ourselves, and we're in this together. So thank you.
Well said.
Should I make a motion to go into
And it
closed?
seems to change every day, doesn't it, Terry?
Yes, can we get a motion for closed session, please?
I move that we go into closed session for the discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act. And student disciplinary cases. There we go. 5 Illinois Statutes 120-2C19.
Can I get a,
Are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, can I have a second?
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Lang.
Aye.
Mencia.
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
And Schumacher.
Aye.
Well, I almost forgot the Daisy.
No.
Espino.
Aye.
And the motion passes.